Evening Book 2, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner, and I am going to film for you guys my mid-year check-in of my goals. Not the mid-year check-in tag, because I already did that. Although I don't remember if I did the mid-year check-in tag or the mid-year freakout tag. I think I did the mid-year check-in tag. But anyway, I had just the other night I watched Jennifer Brooks do her mid-year check-in goals, and I think I have done this before last year, but either way, I watched her video and I was like, oh, I should do that too. So let's talk about my goals for this year so far. So as of right now, so my goals were, first of all, I wanted to read more nonfiction. I'm just going to go through each of them. I wanted to read more nonfiction this year, and I wanted to read a classic every month, and I wanted to continue getting more into science fiction this year, read other horror besides Stephen King, and let me see, the screen for the video is blocking it. Finish more than one series. Okay, so let's start with I'm going to go through these in order. So the nonfiction goal, I have read 3 nonfiction books, although only 2 of them I've completed. One of them was a DNF, and I shouldn't have been surprised, though. It's Origin of the Species, and at the time it was, first off, I got it at the roast office, so I only spent like $4 on it, but I was really proud of myself, and I was like, ooh, I got Origin of the Species, one of the more famous nonfiction works of back in the 1800s. And I should, as I said when I first talked about getting this book, and I'm saying it again now, I should have known better that I wouldn't like it, because I'm not a science person, and it's just very dense. And the problem that you run into with older classics, unless you're used to the writing style of anything, especially anything before the 20th century, then if you're not into the story, and if the story doesn't pull you in, then it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to, the writing style is going to make it even more difficult, I think. And this doesn't have a story, but it's about a subject that I am not as passionate about as because it's like about, it's whole Darwinism and the theory of evolution and all that, and I have no interest in that kind of science. I knew that, but I was thinking, oh, let me try it, because, it's a classic of nonfiction, and maybe I could get into it, and I could not. It was very dense and very wordy, and just like talking about, and he repeats himself a lot, Darwin does, and it was just too much. And if I was more interested in the subject matter, then maybe I could have gotten into it more. But yeah, that was a DNF. So the 2 that I actually finished, one of them was in the first quarter, and then the other one was in the second quarter of the first half of the year. So the first one was We Don't Need Roads by Cassine Gaines. And if you recognize the line, you know what this is going to be about without me even telling you. But this is about the making of Back to the Future, my favorite sci-fi trilogy. I did a separate review. I loved it. I love this deep dive into how that trilogy was made. And as I said in that video, some of the stuff I didn't know, but this is a deeper dive into that and explaining that stuff a little bit more. And it's just really cool to read, to read that book. And it's not super big. But as I said in that review, if you're a fan of the franchise, then check this out. Check out. And it was also a Christmas gift, so I was able to read a book that I got for last Christmas, all right, early on. And then the other one I finished the second quarter was actually June, so just recently, was Hadrian, Hadrian the Triumph of Rome. And I've really been getting into Rome and learning about the history of Rome and all that, and how that empire began and how it fell and everything, and learning about the emperors, the famous emperors and historians of that government, of that empire. And it was really cool because to get a deep dive and learn more about some of the, to learn about one of these emperors, Hadrian, because you know a little bit about Caesar, and and I've heard that Caligula was kind of one of the more crazy ones. But it was like, this is one that I think I've probably heard of the name Hadrian, but I didn't know a lot about him. So I really enjoyed reading about him and getting to know him and see what he did for the empire. And he actually was not that popular because he was kind of a Greek fanboy and even had a Greek boyfriend. And he traveled. He didn't stay in Rome that long. And I remember his dad was his kind of adopted father, his guardian, was also a known emperor. And I meant to look that up before I started filming this video, but it was kind of a last minute decision to film this now, so I forgot to look it up. But his father was also a well-known emperor too. I do not remember, so we got a lot of information on him as well, and I wish I could remember. I don't. Oh well, I can't. I just know that he was a well-known one too, familiar, like I've heard his name before. But yeah, so those are the two that I finished. So at least, 2 is better than none at all. I mean, I think it's an improvement compared to before, where I was, attempting some nonfiction books, but would put them. Although I think I did last year. I read some more nonfiction last year. Yeah, I definitely, and I can't remember when I got. I think it might have been August. Yeah, in August, or at the end of the summer, which maybe summertime is my nonfiction time. But yeah, last August, I think I read quite at least 3 nonfictions. Like I read the Titanic survivor story about one of the maids on the ship that survived. I read the one about the Washington's 6, the spy ring he created. And I think there might have been another nonfiction I read. I think. I would have to check though. I don't remember. But yeah, I think last year I read a few more. But the year is only at the halfway point. So in fact, I'm thinking of starting the David McCullough's John Adams soon. So that could be added to. So anyways, yeah, so that goal is sort of like, I think I'm doing pretty good on that goal. Okay, and then we have goal number 2 is read a classic every month. I'm gonna have to move this thing around. First, I'll move that a little bit. The light, okay, because I need to look at my. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can tell when I'm moving the screen. So the first quarter I read The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. That was actually a reread because I read that in middle school. And as I said, when I talked about the book at the time when I first read it, I was kind of disappointed by it. But rereading it again, I like it a lot better. And I would reread it for a third time, I feel like. Because 1, it's not that long. And 2, I found it very thought-provoking, very intriguing read. And the thing that I complained about the first time I read it, it doesn't bother me this time around. So I read that one. Let's see if I read any other classics. Okay, so that was in January. February was Oscar Wilde month because I read from my collection of short stories, so nothing specific or famous, like well known by him, but I did read the Portrait of Mr. W.H., which was kind of an intriguing idea, but the execution was lacking. Like it was kind of disappointing. Like it, not a lot was going on. It's just basically this guy doing research, and it wasn't like a story. It was just this guy, researching a theory and talking about it. Like not a lot was going on in the story. Then Lord Arthur Savile, which I think I like that one. I think that was, or Lord Arthur Savile's Crime. I think that was, and then I liked that one. I think it was basically this guy went to a fortune teller and told, he wouldn't be able to marry his fiancée unless he committed this crime. And how basically the guy just did that, committed, was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I thought that was really funny. I think it's meant to be a satire. I need to look up satire because sometimes, like, I was just reading the reviews for 1984, which some of the discussion on one particular review was really fascinating. And there were a lot of comments that didn't agree with the reviewer, that actually like, what a pet peeve of mine is when people review a book and it happens to be a negative review, they didn't like it, and people are like, how dare you not like this book? Yeah, sometimes in my head, after I read something or hear someone doesn't like something, I might get a little upset, but I won't say something to them, because after I calm down, not that I get all crazy or anything, but I'm like, I disagree with, or like, but, I think about it after, I'm like, well, they might have a point, or I don't agree with them, but, they, I can understand where they're coming from, or why they think the way they do, or like, okay, yeah, I see what they're talking about, kind of thing. But what grinds my gears is those one where people are like I said, they're like, how dare you? And they'll comment and they'll be like, well, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. It's like, okay, it's just their opinion, as this is your opinion. And you need to calm down and let them have their opinion. And at least if you're going to argue with them about it, be polite and civil. And don't just tell them, well, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Clearly, you didn't pay attention. It's more like, just discuss it in a polite way. And what's great about this review of 1984 is I enjoy the discussion, actually. I found it really intriguing. But anyway, and this kind of, and the person referred to the 1984 as a satire, and I think that this is meant to be a satire too. Like, and I need to, like, I'm not sure what the definition of satire is, so I need to look that up. But anyway, so I read that one, so I liked that one. The Model Millionaire, I kind of liked it. I thought that was okay. This is kind of a miscommunication, misunderstanding, misinterpretation of something scenario. And then let's see. I reread Persuasion by Jane Austen, and each time I reread it, I definitely like that one a lot better. It definitely has grown on me over the years. And I definitely like it a lot better than the first time I read it. Okay, and then let's see. Okay, yeah, so that's it for the first. Oh, and then in March, the last month of the first quarter, I read Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. And I don't know if that would be considered science fiction or not. I was just thinking about that. If that's considered science fiction, because that could apply to the next goal I think I'm going to talk about, or at least the goal where I said I want to read more science fiction. But yeah, I like that one. That one was kind of fun, this adventure story. I like it better. I definitely like it a lot better than 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas. And I also thought that was funnier too. Around the World in 8 Days, I think, is funnier than that one. Okay, so and then we have quarter number 2 is April through June 30th. I read Anna Karenina was the first book I read in the first quarter. The second quarter was the first book I read in the second quarter. And once again, it's definitely one of my favorite classics. And also, it was just a relief to finally finish it. Because I've been reading it for so long. But I really enjoyed it. And I would read it again at some point. And now I want to see an adaptation, which I haven't yet. Maybe either the Keira Knightley one or another one. Like maybe the miniseries. But yeah, that was great. That was great. Now, I don't think the book is for Anna Karenina is for everybody. And there are parts of it that I could see where people find them very boring and tedious. And then I read, so after Anna Karenina, I read The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Now I've watched the adaptations, but I had never read the book. And again, another one that I really enjoyed. I like the bratty kids. And I love all the beautiful descriptions of gardens and stuff. And I thought Colin and Mary's relationship was very sweet and endearing, even though I think Colin was even a worse brat. Although he might have only seemed worse because by that time Mary mellowed out a little bit. I like how characters like Dickon and Martha's mom were actually in the story, because the adaptation that I've seen, their mom doesn't even get a mention. She doesn't exist in the story. And I also like how like the lines at least that adaptation, it got pretty close to the dialogue. Like it got a lot of lines from the book. Also, when I was reading it, I was hearing the actors from that movie adaptation in my head playing the characters. Oh, and Ben Weatherstaff also has a bigger part in this one. And of course, I loved the little Robin. The Robin was cute. And although Miss Medlock was I feel like Miss Medlock wasn't as bad as she seems in the book. But maybe this is because it's a children's book originally, I don't know. But Miss Medlock seemed very intimidating and kind of scary and mean in the other book until like towards the end. Which, I mean, if I watch it now, I definitely feel bad for Miss Medlock because she did work hard, you know. And then let's see. And then so I read 2 classics in April, but Anna Karenina is a pretty long book, so. And then I also read Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery for the first time. I remember liking the miniseries, and then I like Anne with an E. So it was really fun to watch and to read the book, and I already bought the second one. It's just a wholesome story. I love Anne as a main character. You know, she's so imaginative and creative, and just so passionate and such a loving person. But sometimes she does get, you know, her overactive imagination, easily distracted nature can get her into trouble. But yeah, it was such a great book. Both that one, Secret Garden and Anne of Green Gables, I think are great spring reads. Now, Anna Karenina would not recommend as a spring read, but although I'm not big into the seasonal reading, even though I've done a spring book, books that I would recommend for spring, and I want to do one for summer. Even though I'm not a seasonal reader. It's just kind of fun to think about the books that you would, if I was a seasonal reader, what books I would put with each season. Okay, so let's see. So I reread The Hobbit. The Hobbit's a reread as well. I really enjoyed that, but I still kind of have a preference for the movie adaptation. I know that's blasphemous, but like, I feel like the movie does, just expands the book. Like, I understand what Tolkien did, and it is a kid's book, And yeah, he probably didn't need to make three, Peter Jackson did not need to make it into 3 movies. And it was more of a money thing. But I still love the movies, and I will die on that hill. I will not take that back. I love those movies. I don't feel like I need to defend myself for that. And I don't, but I still love the book, and I definitely will still hope that my nephews and my niece will get into reading the book as well, because the book is so much fun. I love Bilbo's journey, his story, and, Tolkien did a lot for fantasy, and he popularized fantasy, I feel like. And it's just like, so yeah, I still love The Hobbit. It's just I kind of have a preference for the movie trilogy. And then let's see what else. Stupid thing. Oops. My stupid light. I can't get it to stay. Okay, so let's see. I don't know if you would count Time and Again as a classic, but I did get an anniversary edition, so maybe it's a more modern classic. But I did like that one. The last one I read was The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare. And now I have mixed feelings about that one, because I kind of liked it, but I get why other people don't. The anti-Semitism does not help. We have a Jewish character, Shylock, who's treated like crap by everyone else. And treated and villainized in the story, and he's not a villain. I actually felt sorry for the character. And it felt like he was being treated unfairly and judged by everyone else. And, but I also, I get why people don't like it. And I also think, I kind of like how it also comments on, like, a lot of people like them were only marrying people, rich people just for their money. And Portia, the character Portia wanted, and her father wanted to make sure she married someone for love, or at least someone who loved her, who cared about her. And it wasn't just, oh, she's rich, she's an heiress. By this little game they play, that they set up when someone proposes to her. The guy has to select between these 3 chests, and one of the chests has a picture of her in it, and he has to choose the right one. So I think whether you like it or not, I think this one, along with Taming of the Shrew, are worth discussing and talking about from a modern perspective. Because even if they have elements in them that people just are not comfortable with, that people would say is problematic, people don't like, they still, have posed some questions and discussion, I feel like. So I don't regret reading it. I'm glad I read it, and I'm glad I read one that's not as popularized, because I feel like, as I've explained before, I feel like when I, in a way, this is my version of being annoyed by hype, is that, if something gets hyped up, it can take away some of the appeal, some of the magic of it being different, of being discovering the story. Because you hear so much about some of the more popular ones, like Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet. Okay. So those are all the classics I read. So pretty good. I'm happy and pleased that I made accomplishment in that Oscar Wilde collection. Probably gonna read more. The next story I think is The Canterville Ghost, and I wanted to save that for October. So let's see, let me move the screen again. Okay, so next is... Okay, so I'm right. The next one I was trying to get, is about science fiction. So my goal number 3 is trying to get more into science fiction. So, now I read some books that feel like they could be science fiction, like The Kingdom, for instance. It's like Westworld meets, Disney parks. which was really fun. I don't know if it's considered YA or not. The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. I don't know if it's YA or maybe it's an adult book, or actually I feel like it could be new adult if they had ever made new adult a category. One of those sci-fi that's very technology potentially going wrong kind of scenario, like AIs basically. So I feel like that would be considered science fiction. And then earlier in June, I read End of the Watch by, where is it? Let me see. I have it right here, End of the Watch. Where is it? I'm trying to find it. I don't know where it is, but J.S. Dawes. It was pretty cool, but this is where me not being interested in science kind of gets in the way, because it was hard for me to follow along and to understand some of the things that were going on in the story. But it was kind of fun. It does have the prince rebelling against his family trope, and the captain who is just struggling and trying to be a good captain. And it had a lot of cool concepts and everything, but it was just more me not being able to follow along with it at times, and just didn't, couldn't really. I mean, I got into enough to finish it and read it, and I enjoyed it to an extent, but it's not like one I'm gonna continue or eager to read the next book in the series. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. Like, I think listening to it via audiobook could potentially help. But anyway, so there was that, and then let's see. I do feel like some of Stephen King's short stories kind of have a sci-fi feel too. Let me see. No, those are not. I'm trying to look. Oh, there's End of the Watch. Let's see. Word processor of the gods. I feel like that's science fiction because, again, technology being dangerous, because it was basically this man is given a computer, an homemade word processor by his nephew as a birthday gift. And it has the power to delete people, but also you can return them. You can bring them back. So he decides he might, alter some things. So it's one of those, what would you do in this situation, I feel like. So that to me is sci-fi. Like I said, that Around the World in 80 Days, I don't know if that would be considered sci-fi or not. Or maybe it's just an adventure story, and but there is a little bit of science involved in that one, as you had the weather patterns, and characters are traveling, and they're, he has to get somewhere within a certain amount of time. So yeah, I feel like that could potentially be science fiction. Yeah, I think that's it. All the science fiction. So yeah, so that would be The Time Machine. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. It's a time travel story. Oh, and Time and Again, another time travel story. I think time travel stories are easier for me to get into, because there's often they have an historical aspect to them. Unless unless they're traveling to the future. I think that's why I probably get into time travel stories as part of the science fiction genre, because they're, you know, they're more appealing to me with their historical aspects, and they're kind of focused on the people rather than the science. So yeah, so the time machine, Word Process of Gods, anything there? The Kingdom, time and again, so that's 4. Okay, so yeah, four sci-fi books. But they're not heavy on the science, which I think can help make me get into them more. So yeah, not too bad. I mean, that's even better than the nonfiction category, or even the classics for that matter. Not that it matters because how many books of each, but it's just more for me. I want to, you know, cover these genres so that it will eventually slowly become second nature for me to read all these different genres and book categories, because nonfiction, I don't know if you would consider I guess you would. I don't know if you consider nonfiction of a genre or not. Okay, moving the screen again. Okay, finish more than one series. Okay, so I know I finished the Powder Mage trilogy this year, and let's see. I did start my reread of A Court of Thorns and Roses, or A Court of series by Sarah J. Maas. It's not finished, but I did read, I listened to that on audiobook, so I'm up to date basically on that series. I don't know. I mean, I think she's gonna write more. She just is right now also working on the Crescent City series. Let's see. I finally finished Ruin of Kings and Way of Kings, which those also might apply to another goal on there. I need to check. And then let's see. Oh, and I finished in the quarter 2. I finished what's that series? Rhyria Revelations. I finished that one. So that's 2 series, 2 trilogies more specifically. Yeah, so really, and School for Good and Evil, The Camelot Years. I finished that one as well. I read the last one recently, the last book in that series recently. The last book I have mixed feelings. Because on the one hand, I like a lot of stuff they did, the development of certain characters like Sophie, but on the other hand, there were aspects of it that I didn't like Teteris as a character. Not his whole story arc. Because there are aspects of his arc that I do like his whole thing about like him and the other guy have to pass this test to prove themselves worthy of pulling the sword and wearing the crown. I like that whole concept. That was really fun. But either way, I'm happy, and I also am happy to be in that world again, and just I like how the parents are involved and offer their advice. They're not like, you know, oh, you're grounded and I'm going to lock you up because this is too dangerous for you. You shouldn't be. I'm going to be all overprotective, or, you know, whatever. It's they actually do stuff. They actually get involved. They play their role. They offer the kids advice and stuff, but they don't overshadow the kids. They're not super overprotective of them. But we also see them they're flawed human beings as well. especially, you know, get that with Tedros dealing with his mom, with Guinevere. So I really like that too. So yeah, there are a lot of stuff I like about the how the book went. So I'm satisfied with the ending, but there are still aspects that I was not happy with. So that's 3 series I've completed so far. But there are a lot that I made progress on as well. You know, and a lot is, you know, that I read the first book in the series and finally finished it, like Way of Kings and Ruin of Kings. So I'm happy about that. So 3 series, it's pretty good. I mean, it's still only half the year, so the first half of the year. So I got the next half of the year to where I can fulfill these goals a lot better and have a lot more to say to you guys about them. Okay, and then we have and read historical fiction every month. Okay, so let's see. Let me see how that went. The Physician. Okay, so that's historical. And I read that, and that was back in January. That was one of that actually applies to the next goal as well, but I will get to that in a little bit. So, The Physician and Victory of Eagles. That also applies to the series goal, where I've made some progress in a series, which is 9 books, and that is, I think, 5. I think book 5. But that's also historical fiction. Let's see, I'm trying to find, which was that? I don't remember if that was January or not. If Victory of Eagles was a January read. Alright. Okay, so, yeah, so sadly, those are the historical fiction of that one. Unless you can. So, second quarter, I read, they started out, the first month of the second quarter was The Distant Hours. That was a reread. I finally finished that one. The Last Kingdom, that's also part of a series by Bernard Cornwell. So I finally read that one and finished it. So I was happy about that. And those books are not that long, so it wouldn't take me that long to finish anyway. So there's that one. And that's the first book in a series. And that was in the second quarter. What month was that? I think that was May. Yeah, that was May, my birthday month, when I read that one. Time and Again is it's a time travel story, so it's partially historical. I think it was 1899. 1899 is the year he goes back to, so half of the book is historical. And I enjoyed that one. That one was really fun. And I think it's more because the main focus of the story was the time travel, which, by the way, that's one of the things that I really liked about it, is that their concept, Jack Finney's concept of time travel, is a little different. I haven't seen it before, where basically it's all about using your mind to travel through time instead of getting to a machine and traveling through time. I think that was really cool. Okay, something's up with my throat. I hope I'm not getting sick, but anyway, struggling to talk here. So yeah, so that one was half time travel. I mean, half historical. And then, let's see. Yeah, okay, so those are my historical. So the Time Machine, the Kingdom, The Last Kingdom, The Distant Hours. The Physician, so that's 3. Victory Vehicles is 4. Although if I count Victory Vehicles, I guess I should count some of the other. Okay. Yeah, okay, so, again, not too bad, but, and I'm gonna continue doing better with these goals. You know, I know I don't have to, but I want, like I said, I want to. I want to include reading because I love historical fiction as a genre as much as like fantasy and horror. And like I said, I'm trying to get more, and I want to get into science fiction. I think it just depends on the science fiction, and the same thing with nonfiction. I think it depends. Okay, so next is finish at least 4 tomes. So I'm off to a pretty good start. I mean, I've read like 3, I think. So, The Physician. And Salem's Lot. I read that one. So I've read more than that. So I think I might need to change that goal because I think I've completed that goal because, you know, depending on your definition of a tome, I mean, Salem's Lot technically counts. Ruin of Kings. So not only is that the first book in a series, but it's also a tome. It's a big book. So we The Physician, Ruin of Kings, Salem's Lot, The Wastelands by Stephen King, which is also part of a series, the third book in the Dark Tower series. So I completed that one as well. So I'm very happy about that one. And I did start reading book 4, but I haven't picked it up lately. Shadow of What Was Lost. So I think that would be considered a tome as well. That was the first book in a series, a trilogy, I should say. So I only have 2 more books to read. And, yeah. Okay, so that was the first quarter. Then quarter 2, Anna Karenina. I think Distant Hours is a tome. I don't know. I have to double check on that. The Distant Hours by Kate Morton. The Skeleton Crew. I'm not sure if was a tome or not, but that's a collection of short stories, and I did complete it finally after reading it for a long time. And then the Camelot Years, Wonder King. Those books I think are pretty chunky books. I don't know if they were considered tomes or not. So yeah. So Ruin of Kings, Way of Kings, The Physician, Salem's Lot, which was a reread. Anna Karenina. Yeah, so I think that one I did really good. I'm very proud of me there. Like, I've read quite a bit of chunky books. I mean, it's not in one go. A lot of these are books that I started a couple of years ago and I finished them this year. So, but I count them because I can do what I want, and I count them as read, as progress. Okay, so next we have the last goal is to continue to explore other horror authors besides King. So let's see. Ronald Malfi. He's written several other books I have not tried yet, but I did read. I did like Black Mouth. I thought that was pretty good. And that kind of had a lot of Stephen King feels to it, with the premise and everything. And how, like, it deals with kids and friendship and, being friends with someone from your childhood and reconnecting with them because of something you both experienced together. That kind of feel to it. I really, and kind of looking back on your childhood, like, it had that element to it. Let's see. So I'm trying to look further. That was Stephen King's. Okay, so unfortunately, and The Curse of Crow Hollow by Billy Coffey. And that was pretty good too. I think I kind of like that one a little bit better. Well, I don't know. I mean, I said I did, but thinking about it once again, I think I don't know how I felt. I don't know which one I like better. I mean, each of them had elements that I liked. So, but it was definitely really cool to try a different horror author. Now I haven't read anything else by any of these authors. But maybe whenever I go to go to BAM or whatever, or go to like one of these bookstores, if I see any horror, by other authors, then I might check it out and try it again. But so really, I've only tried out one book by different authors, but at least I tried something. Let's see that's the first quarter. Now we're not done yet. We can check on quarter 2. Yeah, I don't think I read any other horror authors in quarter 2. Because it's mostly Stephen King horror. Which basically, because I finished The Skeleton Crew in the second quarter. Yeah, so really I only tried Billy Coffey and Ronald Malfi, and I did like them. I mean, I'm not above trying anything else from them. But it's also, like, I have to really be into it and have to be in the right mood for it. So that's kind of an update on the goals I had this year. Like I said, I might tweak the goal about, series. But all these goals were more, I want to make progress with them. They don't have to be perfect. I don't have to do super well and do the best thing ever, but I just want to make progress on them. And, once I get into enough, then eventually I want it to become hopefully it will become second nature to me to do these things. And because I like multiple, I don't just like fantasy, I like horror, I like historical. And then I want, like I said, I'm intrigued by sci-fi. But it's certain kinds of sci-fi. And then the same thing with nonfiction, where I do like history and learning about things, but like not every nonfiction is going to be for me, just like not every science fiction is going to be for me. So this is just to get me started. I really want to try. I always say this, that I want to try to read, like, cover all my bases each month. Like, read one horror book, one science fiction book, one fantasy book, one historical fiction book, one sci-fi. But it's kind of hard for me to do. And the same thing with also including classics, one classic a month. But I'm just not really good at it. I mean, I shouldn't say that, and I should just... But maybe I put too much pressure on myself. I don't know. But anyway. So if you guys set goals for yourselves, then I would love to hear about those goals, and maybe you can talk about them in the comment section below. And if not, I hope, you feel like your reading is going well and you're enjoying your reading. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification button if you want to be notified about my latest videos. I hope your reading is going well. Either way. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!